is Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, also known as Tabs, best on the Nintendo Switch. In today's video, we'll find out if the Switch version is the ultimate version, or if you should play it on other consoles or other systems like the Steam Deck. First of all, if you haven't heard of this game, it's a battle simulator, a totally accurate one. This game is heavy in ragdoll physics and mimics other battle simulators, this one being a little more silly and addictive to watch. This game initially came out all the way back in 2016, well, at least that's when the alpha was released, and it was available to only a few people. And as the game progressed, they added more and more content, and it eventually got its full release in 2019. The game had a big impact on the community, with modders being able to create and play with their own Tabs creations. But enough about the history. We're here for the Switch version, which just released this week. For this version specifically, most of the content from the previous releases are here, aside from the simulation and legacy campaigns, and a few legacy and secret faction units. Also, according to the developers, the bug DLC will not be available on the Switch, and for custom content, you can only create content and share it with the other Switch users. However, the developers hope to fix that in the future. They've also redesigned and rebalanced a number of levels specifically for the Switch. Now that we've gone over the changes, let's look at the graphics and performance. As you would expect from any Switch game, it isn't going to be the best looking version, but it's also not terrible. The simplistic graphics style they went for with this game works well on Switch. It's actually a good looking port. But there's also some noticeable graphical differences with this version, like how the shadows are just a lot less clear, and the obvious downgrade with some textures. There's even some noticeable pop-in from the in-game elements like grass when you're moving the camera towards the battle. Another noticeable difference is the lack of motion blur, which isn't a massive loss, especially considering some people absolutely hate motion blur. But I like motion blur, especially in a high-intensity battle simulator like this. But there's one major graphical thing that I don't really like, and that's the frame rate. What's good about the frame rate is actually it's 60 frames per second, unlike a lot of the other Nintendo Switch ports. Well, it's 60 most of the time, aside from some massive dips when reloading units and when there's a lot going on in battle. But the more jarring thing is, although the camera is moving at 60 frames per second, it looks like the characters aren't. It looks like the characters are running at 20 to 30 frames per second, which you can get used to while you're playing. It's just weird that it's so obvious while you are playing. You'll generally see low animation rates in games with animals far away from you to save some processing power, but not like this. But at the end of the day, it's all completely playable, and you're not missing out on much, so that's good. Now the controls. They're pretty basic. And first of all, it's comfortable playing this game in handheld, because of course playing this game handheld is a big reason for buying this version. But even when you're playing handheld, the Joy-Cons work pretty well with it, even with the abnormally small Joy-Con analog sticks. But I'm sure you're wondering, does this game have touchscreen? I mean, there's one right in front of you, so it seems like this game would be perfect for it. Well, no, it doesn't. Totally Accurate Battle Simulator doesn't have any touchscreen capabilities, which is supported on another handheld device that I can think of. At least in game, the controls are pretty easy to get the hang of, and there's a wheel thing to select your units that wasn't in the PC version to my knowledge, so that's a bit different to get used to, but I kinda like it. But now let's look at the multiplayer. Since the Switch is a multiplayer machine, it'd be interesting to see how this game runs with it. Well, it runs the same as the normal game. There's a small limit of 20 units per side allowed on the screen at once, which is still fun, but again, kind of disappointing. But it's not just the Switch version that has this unit limit. The Xbox version also does that. You can have a little more with 30 units, but there's still a limit so your device doesn't explode. For local co-op, it's a similar console experience across the board, so if you like truly massive battles, then sadly you're out of luck. Now let's take a look at it side by side with the Steam Deck. Right away, the Steam Deck has a higher frame rate, higher resolutions, smooth animations, and you can have unlimited units in the simulation mode. Whereas you're limited to 20 units per side on the Switch, like we've discussed. And let's not forget about mods, which can make this game feel like a completely different game at times. Tabs has a huge community for custom content, and surprisingly, that's also available on the Switch. I'm almost certain that this isn't as intense as the PC modding scene, but it's cool to have some community content. And the Tabs community just can't get enough of this game, so much so that this game is even getting a mobile release sometime in 2022, which doesn't surprise me. At this point, if it can run on my Switch, it should be able to run on my iPhone. But is the price good, and is the value this game brings worth it? Well, first, the price right now is about $20 on Switch, which is great for this type of game. But if you were to buy it on Steam, the price drops quite often. Even now, the game is only $7 on Steam at the time of recording this. And I even got it cheaper on Steam with a bunch of other games through Humble Bundle. But the real question is, what do you want to do with this game? Because if you want to just play the campaign mode, or fool around a bit and have it portable, or at least be able to take advantage of the multiplayer convenience of being able to take it around to a friend's place, then the Switch version is more than enough. But if you're like me, and you like to mess around with all sorts of things without having limitations, like 10 mammoths versus 100 halflings, and watching the chaos ensue, then maybe the PC version would be better for you, especially if you play with mods and are crazy like that. But back to the main question, Is it best on Switch? Most likely not. If you have a wild side and like to have some insane simulated experiences, then I would recommend the Steam version. But obviously it depends on your playstyle. If you definitely want to get this on a console, or if you only have a Switch, then this version is more than enough to fill the Tabs hole in your soul. But that's it for my review on Tabs on the Nintendo Switch. And honestly, it's a good version of the game. It's all there for the most part. But let me know, has this version piqued your interest? Or are you gonna just stick with it on another console or device? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you check out another video right here and subscribe by clicking here. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and hit that like button. I hope to see you in the next one. See you later.